Rabbi Goldberg mentioned, many people don't appreciate the growth, the explosion of Torah in Los Angeles. As I mentioned often in school, many of the schools, as you could see from the schools, the Hollywood sign. And people of my generation remember what Los Angeles was like for many people came and caused this growth of Torah. And I think, more specifically, I think all of us do appreciate the tremendous growth of Torah in the last 4 or 5 years here in the Pico Robertson neighborhood. There was a wonderful community before, but now we see the absolute explosion of Torah in a positive sense of the community that we live in Baruch Hashem. And a great deal of that is due to Rabbi Graydon's kollel. Of course, Rabbi Graydon has been in our community, the larger Los Angeles community, for many years with Rabbi Fassman's kollel, and had a tremendous hashpah on people then. But from at least our community sense, the tremendous Gizuk HaTorah that the kollel has brought is phenomenal. And we all appreciate Ramat Yitzhak for that. And of course, that lies foundationally with Rabbi Graydon, the tremendous work, so that all of us know how, or maybe don't appreciate, how hard it is to run any Mosad Torah. But to be responsible for over 1 million of Kol Irakim who are learning and their families, it's a tremendous weight. But we could use this opportunity to not only hear Rabbi Graydon's words, but also appreciate who is. Without further ado, it's really it's an honor for us to have Rabbi Graydon speak on understanding the Korban. And this year by Rabbi Graydon is sponsored appropriately by Mr. Anonymous.
So when Nebuzaradan, who was appointed by Nebuchadnezzar to be the actual executioner, one who would expedite the destruction of the actual executioner in Jerusalem for the first temple, when he came into the Beis HaMikdash, he encountered a very terrible sight, and that was there was blood that was bubbling on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash. So he said to them, the Gemara says like this. This is a Gemara of Tzadik Vavam at Beis Masechtas Sanhedrin. Chaza Damad Zachariah David Kavikorosach. He encountered the blood of Zachariah, the prophet, that had been murdered, and the blood was boiling. So this Goyish general said to the Jews in Jerusalem in the Beis HaMikdash, Omaluhu, my hi, what is this? What's going on here? Blood is bubbling on the floor. Amrulei damzvachimu. Damzvachimu ishtapuch. They told him, this is from sacrifices. A lot of sacrifices here, and there's a lot of blood around here. That's the blood that's bubbling. Amalu now. I see va'anasi imadami. I want to bring some blood of animals and compare it and test it and see whether it is indeed the same blood. Kasasi, so he slaughtered the animals below Idmu and he saw that the blood weren't the same. Amalu, so he said to the people of Galilee, I want you to reveal to me what the source of this blood is. Vilo, otherwise, otherwise I'm going to comb your skin with metal combs. He didn't play with his words, meant whatever he said. So Amrele, Hai Koyin V'Naviyu. This blood is the blood that was spilt from a Kohen, a priest, who was also a Navi, a prophet. And he and his colleagues, the other Naviim, the Navi says 4 of them a day, 4 every single day would come. Kodesh Baruch Hu would send them for different ones, and their job was to warn Klal Yisrael. This was a couple of hundred years before the Churban. There would be ultimately a destruction, and eventually the people couldn't tolerate it anymore. They weren't able to hear this barrage of Musar, Techocha, the warnings they were getting, the threats they were getting. So Kotlu, they killed him. Elsewhere it says they killed him on Yom Kippur Shechol Yos B'Shabbos. When did they kill him? On the Yom Kippur day. It happened also to be Shabbos. So you probably couldn't get in the history of the world a worse Aveir, killing a Navi, a Kohen, a Talmud Chacham in the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos Shechol Yom Kippur. So Zacharias, so the Nebuchadnezzar said, fine, Amalahu ano mufaisan ole. I'll get this blood to stop bubbling. I see Rabbanan, so he brought great Talmidei Chachamim, Kotel Avei, and he murdered on the spot, the blood bubbled. I see Dardikei de Rav, he brought the young students from the yeshivas, the schools, he murdered them, blood was still bubbling. I see Pirchei Kahuna, he brought the young boys who were going to the school for Kahuna to graduate, to learn how to practice Kahuna in the Beis HaMikdash, he murdered them, V'lo Ad dikatil ilavei tishin va'arba ribu, till he murdered 940,000 people on the spot. This is one of his murders. It wasn't all the people he murdered. In the Beis HaMikdash, he murdered 940,000 people, 1 million people, to appease the blood of Zechariah. Korav legabei. So Nebuzaradan drew close to the blood, and he screamed and he said, Zechariah, Zechariah, toivim shebeni badati. I've killed the best element of the people. I've murdered everything that Klal Yisrael was proud of is now dead. In one fell swoop, I've murdered all of them. Is your will that I should kill all of them? Should I proceed and kill everybody? Just totally annihilate the Jewish people? Is that what you want? Miyadach. So the blood immediately stopped bubbling. So he came there, he encountered the blood bubbling, doesn't stop. He murders one element of society, another element. Hatoivim shebehem, the Talmidei Chachamim, the Kohanim, the Tinoikas Shabbat Rabban, Hebel Piem Shein Behem Chet, young children who haven't sinned. He's murdering and murdering and murdering. There's nothing left to do. Just the simple people are left. And he screams at the blood, do you want me to kill everybody? The blood stops bubbling. So Fractor Chetzer, the Mashgiach of the Mir, Becheskel Levenstein Zechar Nevrocha, so he asks, what is it that he said that caused the blood to stop boiling? What happened? He murdered near to 1 million people. it didn't stop bubbling. He started screaming, the blood stops bubbling. What happened? What changed? So he said the following. He said that as soon as Nebuzaradan said that he was prepared to annihilate the entire people and leave nobody alive, he made it clear to everybody that Hama'abed Nefesh Achas B'Yisrael, if you kill one Jew, so Ki'ilu Ibed Olam Moleh, as if you destroyed an entire world. It means every single person is equivalent to a full world. And therefore, min hadin, it would be necessary to kill everybody to appease one murder. As soon as that hakara, that awareness, that was clarified, and everybody really understood what this takes, that was the tikkun of the chait. At that point, the chait was mesukah. So all the time he was killing people, nobody was sure where this is going. He wasn't sure where it's going. But when he finally announced he's going to destroy everybody, so what sense did this make? He destroyed everybody? Everything will be gone because one person was murdered? Apparently yes. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu used as the tikkun for this chait. I'm sure many of you have heard of the God who lives in Bnei Brak, Rabbi Arnim Steinman Shlita, so he's about nearly 100 years old. So last week, after the terrible murder of the tzaddik in Beersheba, so he went to Beersheba and he gave a drosha. And in the drosha he said that the ik-hitrug against Klal Yisrael, the ik-sin, which is wearing down and bearing down on Klal Yisrael, is the chait of ben Adam lechaveru. It's interpersonal sins. It's not the level of kashrus, it's not the quality of the mikveh, it's not the chilul Shabbos. We're not discussing non-different people, different worlds. In the circle of the Shomer Mitzvah, the things that go on which aren't appropriate, all of which aren't appropriate, so those things don't bring these type of repercussions. What brings these repercussions is Aveirus Sheben Adam Lechaveira. So let's think a second. What is the murder of the Kohen, the Navi, in the Beis HaMikdash? On Shabbos, Shechonis, Yom Kippur. Is that Ben Adam L'Mokoim? Or is that Ben Adam L'Chaveira? In other words, clearly, it's a sin to the heavens. You can't murder. You can't violate the Shabbos and the Yom Kippur, assuming it could be this is a Meleches Machshavos. It's not a discussion for now. Kepipshuto, it's an Issa D'Oraisa what they did. So, it's Chilul Shabbos, it's Chilul Yom Kippur, if they were angry enough. And it's Chilul Hashem of unparalleled levels, and it's Tumas Beis HaMikdash V'Kodshov. So there's a whole slew of things which is certainly Bein Adam L'Mokum. Certainly, it's Bein Adam L'Chaveir, kill a person is not very polite. I mean, most of you kill somebody, he's not too happy with you generally. So, sounds like it's a Bein Adam L'Chaveir, but what's the shorish? Is this a chait for people who are out of control in terms of Ben Adam L'Chaveiro? Or is it a chait of people out of control, Ben Adam L'Mokum, or both? And let's take a look further. This was in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. And Chazal tell us in Masechta Yuma that the sins, the chatoi, which brought the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash was Avodah Zarah, Gilai Rois, and Shlichus Damim. They were careless and violating the three cardinal sins, the three most basic sins that we know: idol worship, murder, and impropriety in the sexual relations. And all those three things, they were parents. Exactly how much is a debate, but the Torah calls it that they were in violation of those Aveirus, which we know is Yehorig V'al Yavor, requires a person to be prepared to give up his life. Very serious Aveirus. Midach, on the second Beis HaMikdash, the sages tell us explicitly, the chait which destroyed the second temple is Sinas Chinam. Sinas Chinam, this baseless, meaningless hatred, is for sure a chait Bein Adam L'mo L'chaveiro is certainly interpersonal sin. Every sin has both dimensions to it, but it's certainly rooted in the world of Bein Adam L'chaveiro. But this murder was in the first temple. And in the first temple, the sins were Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, and Shfichas Damim. And that's where Zechariah's blood was spilled. And that's when it came to be avenged. And that's when Reb Chatzkel says that the Rebbe got up and made his epic speech that unless something stops here, we're going to have to shech the entire people. Slaughter and destroy the entire people. So, I want to share something with you that perhaps is a little bit mahudish, the point, but it's certainly true. The question is exactly how to balance it, we could discuss, but the point itself is certainly true. The Rebbeinu Shalom created Klal Yisrael as Am Echad, a united people. Fundamentally, we are Mu'uchad, we are united, we are essentially one. The fact that there are so many groups and factions and machlokas, that emanates from the pasuk in Mishlei, L'ta'av or Yevakesh Nifrat. That when people look for their own interests, that creates division. As you want a simple example, there's a cake on the table, and there are 10 people sitting around the table, and there's only 8 pieces of cake. So, if each one is going to grab for a piece of cake, each one is thinking about himself and grabs for the piece of cake, so there's not going to be enough. If they think of one another, they'll find a solution how to divide this cake between 10 people. This is the famous principle of Chaim Shmulevitz, who says about the Yehuda, the Dor of Rabbi Bar Eloi, Shishon Miskasim B'Talis Echad, that there was a time when 6 Jews were being covered with one blanket. So how can 6 Jews be covered with one blanket or one coat? It's an impossibility. So well, if each one is thinking himself, from Chaim Shmulevitz says something to talk about. But if each one thinks of the other, maybe they'll come up with a patent, maybe they'll come up with some sort of way in which it can be done. So says Ibn Yerucham, the Mashgiach, that the same thing is true about all of life. The Tavo Yevakesh, when people are thinking of themselves, that's when Nifrat, that's when you create division, that's when you create factions, that's where you create friction, and that's where all machlekes comes from. Obviously, if somebody's prepared to murder somebody, too much Yiras Shamayim he doesn't have. Now we understand. But you don't have too much Yiras Shamayim, but after all said and done, what are you doing? Think about this other person. Think about him and his family and his parents and his wife and his children and his friends and his employees. Think about it. What's happening there? I mean, there's a whole world that you're destroying for your interest. However much rage you might experience, however much frustration you might experience, think a little bit. The answer is, L'ta'avo Yevakesh. I don't have to think about that, because I'm worrying about myself. He disturbed my parnasa, he disturbed my honor, he disturbed my family's honor, he's causing a nuisance, he's too rich, he's too poor, whatever it is that motivated my murder disturbs me sufficiently that I can do that. That belongs to the world of L'ta'avo Yevakesh, that belongs to the world of the person who's thinking about himself. And the same thing is with Gilui Arayos. When a person does something inappropriate in the world of relationships where HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked it, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says this thing is fundamentally unhealthy. I know you think otherwise. I know you think it's very important, it's going to bring a tikkun olam, but it's not going to bring a tikkun olam. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world said, these relationships are damaging. Do we understand it? Maybe not. Maybe the Rishonim have different views. Why this type of person is forbidden and that type of person. It's not important. That's Talmud Torah. That's quote-unquote philosophy. But the Ratzon HaBoirei, the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is this is not meant to be done. And if it's not meant to be done, it's not good for you and it's not good for the other person. It's not good for all the people around either. And it's not good for the world. But all of that doesn't matter because the Ta'av Yevakesh, because the person is seeking their own gratification, their own satisfaction. And exactly the same thing is true with Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is not a philosophy that people get caught up with and they can't manage. Rambam writes a beautiful thing. Rambam writes in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah, how did people, there's a fundamental question, a fundamental problem, how did people ever end up doing Avodah Zarah? If Adam Rishon was created by God, and he knew that he was created by the Ribbono Shel Olam, so he knew the world emanated from Hashem, so that's what he told his children. So who's the one who didn't get it along the way? Where did somebody suddenly decide that we all came from the monkey? I mean, we knew that we came from the Ribbono Shel Olam, so when did it change? So Rambam grapples with this shaila, and he says that the process was slow, but it began through people saying that when you pray to God, it's inappropriate to disturb him all day long. He has many misharsim b'shamayim, he has many servants and many advisors and helpers, the suns and the moons and the galaxies, etc. You talk to them and they'll go to their boss. And eventually, from that framework, it came down to people actually attaching and believing that there was huge strength in these various groups. They started believing them. So the Rambam says, the Koimrei Avodah Zarah, the priests of Avodah Zarah, used to run around and tell people, why would you want to pray to God? Pray to this star, pray to this moon, pray to this whatever it is. You'll see you'll get what you need. Well, stop a second. Is tefillah to the Ribbono Shel Olam a means to get what you need? Is the reason that we daven because we're missing things, and therefore we get up to daven, we say to the Ribbono Shel Olam, this is my shopping list, and please provide, because I'm a Fruma Yid, and I give a lot of tzedakah, and I even say myself, I'm a great man, and therefore you should be given what I need. Is that what we daven? Or is the person davens because the person in this world has to remain makush, he has to understand that the makar of all bracha, he has to have an awareness that the makar of all bracha is the Ribbono Shel Olam, the mezin, the meparnis, the mechalkel, everything is the Ribbono Shel Olam, the provider, should never lose sight of that. The Avodah Zarah doesn't believe that. The Avodah Zarah believes that the idols are a way, a means to an end. They give you what you need. So the Rambam is saying, why would a person want to pray to the Ribbono Shel Olam? And who knows if he'll ever agree to give you anything, because he has to decide. Avodah Zarah is like a cup machine. You put in a quarter, out comes a can. So would you waste your time with all this? So it's Vaita the same thing. It's me. I'll use this means this is my relationship with these spiritual forces because I'll get what I need. So even though obviously these Averas reflect a huge weakness in the concept of how I relate to the Almighty, but at the same time they're talking about how I relate to other people and myself, and the overwhelming factor is the fact I'm interested in myself. In Sinas Chinam, obviously it's self-understood that if we have bad relations with people, if we have a negative view of people, if we undermine people, if we talk badly about people, obviously it's about me. The Ribbono Shel Olam put a person in the world, and the challenge, the reason the person is in the world, is that when they give back the neshama to the Ribbono Shel Olam after 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, however many years he's there, 100 years, 120 years, however long it is, that the neshama has improved itself, has fine-tuned itself, has matured because of his experience in this world. That's what a person is doing here, nothing else. To that end, the only thing that one can do to reach those goals is to work hard. A person needs to work on his midas. A person needs to work on his tefillah. He has to work on his Talmud Torah. He has to work on his honesty. He has to work on kibbud avayim. He has to work on his relationship with his wife. He has to work on how he relates to his children. He has to work. And that's the only way that a person can grow. And that's a tough gruel. It's like being in the Marines your whole life long, because every minute there's something else springing up that's a challenge. Something that the person has to deal with that he's really not interested in dealing with. Here he can't concentrate in davening, and here he's disturbed in learning, and here in business he wants to cheat, and here his relationships are suffering, and here he thinks this is better, and he thinks this is a better opportunity, and he's running around through life, and every second he's being challenged by another Yetzer Hara that's being created at miraculous speed. So there is one other way that a person can achieve perfection in this world. At least it would, obviously not truly, but a person could believe that he could achieve perfection in this world, is by killing the rest of the world. Which means like this. Your wife says to you, you're going to shul a little bit late these days. Try to go a little bit earlier. He says, I should go to shul earlier? Everyone in the shul is a gander except me. They come early because they gander. I come when I'm ready to come. So now, if everyone in the shul is a gander, why do I have to come early? I'm better than these people already. Everyone come a little bit late, that doesn't matter, I'm not a gander. So then she says, at the shir, people are trying harder, you're dozing off. They're trying. They don't work all day long. They'll go over and they don't work. I have to work all day long. I fall asleep at the shir. Says, you're not so nice to your father. My father's a Russian. So by the time he's finished, he's gone around, the whole world is full of Rishoyim, the whole world is full of Ganobim, the whole world is full of bad people. The only good person left that was ever created is himself. And therefore he's doing the world a favor by being around. And if he become any greater, the Mashiach would come, and he's not holding by that. So, that's it. That's the alternative to working on yourself. The alternative to working on yourself and becoming somebody is to find out why the whole world should be grateful to you for existing, for doing them the favor of being around. That's Sinas Chinam. Sinas Chinam means that I'm disturbed by people who shouldn't disturb me. And they disturb me because instead of having inside myself a sense of fulfillment and accomplishment for what I'm doing, when a person is accomplished and a person is fulfilled and a person feels that omid b'nisoyin, I didn't talk in the davening today, I listened in the shir, I worked the whole day at the office and didn't mess around, I was nice to my mother even though she was somewhat short with me, I was polite to the woman in the store even though she was slow in doing my packages, I spoke nicely to my child even though they threw him out of school, I was doing my best in every front. Then the person is a happy person. The person feels good. That he doesn't need to take his strength from destroying other people. But if somebody's not prepared to do that, and every time he fails, he knows that he's failed and he's not prepared to address the issue, there's only one way to take care of it, start killing a few people. Literally, figuratively, both together, it makes no difference. So every guy with a black coat is like this, and every guy with this yarmulke is like that, and everyone is like this, and the whole world is everything, except for himself, who's the single greatest gift to the world since Leinish one. So the aside of all these problems, one way or another, is a person's unhealthy view of themselves. If the person would see themselves as being privileged to be in the world in order to be able to do something, to serve the Ribono Shel Olam, to make a difference to his family, to his community, to his friends, to his parents, whoever he makes a difference for, by doing something constructive, by creating something, by being medactic, by being a loy Torah, by being medactic in mitzvah, by being a metakim midosa, by being a shomer l'shoinoi, if those things meant anything to him, he wouldn't have time for all this. But the time that we have for petty machlokas and petty stupidities and concerns and narishkeit and all day long, and the lashon hara is all about the emptiness that's inside the person. Eventually one gets empty enough and one has no identity that murdering another person is also not a problem. Because if I don't stand for anything and everything is so overwhelming, then I need to get rid of people, I need to put them out of the way. Eventually I can take a Navi who stands in front of me and says, listen, the Ribono Shel Olam sent me, I'm a Navi. He's saying in a prescribed amount of time, this edifice, the Beis HaMikdash, which you feel protects you, is going to be destroyed. There'll be nothing here. And there'll be mass murder, and there'll be tremendous destruction, Chil Hashem. Pull your socks up. So I have one or two choices, either to listen to him, so you know what, maybe I can do something about it. I don't have to become Moshe Rabbeinu, I have to become the Vilna Gaon, but if I fix up one or two things, I'm sure it'll make a good impression. Or I can murder the Navi, because he's getting my nerves. So eventually murder the Navi. Forget about the murder part of it. What it means is we've ultimately totally abrogated our responsibilities, our honor responsibilities. As long as nobody's telling me I'm wrong, as long as I feel it's okay, it's okay. Under those circumstances, a person can't tolerate people. He's disturbed by people. Anybody's success eats away at him because he has nothing to show. There's nothing to do with whether you're rich or poor. You could be the poorest man around. You might not be a Talmid Chacham. As long as you're trying, you're a great person. And the person who's doing very well isn't trying, isn't a great person. So there's nobody who doesn't fit into this box. Everybody is able to be a Ben Aliyah by trying to do something. Whatever they're trying is fine. That's as much as anybody expects of you. And if the person really is making an effort, they know that, there's a comfort level there, there's a level of satisfaction, there's a level of support, and that detracts from the person's need for all this negativity. That's the side of Ben Adam L'Chavero. The seriousness and the severity of a chait, Ben Adam L'Chavero, interpersonal chait, is it means the other person has to pay the price for my inadequacies. Somebody else has to pay the price. I have to get him out of the way, because looking at him disturbs me, because he stops me from being too unique. He works harder than I do, he makes more money than I do, he learns more than I do, he's nicer to his mother, he's better to his wife, and all that facing a challenge I have to face. There's only one thing I can do with it, wipe the floor with it. So that's all a Meshunadik Chesaron. That it represents the exact opposite of what a person was created for. You understand something now which is a magnificent insight into Chazal. You remember the time of the Churban Bayis Rishon, the first temple was destroyed. So Yirmiyahu Novi was at that time, he was the Novi. There was complete disarray and everything, even the Shemayim was completely in turmoil. So Yirmiyahu Novi, we're told in the Medrash, when he encountered this massive Churban, he was running around trying his best to do whatever he could. And nothing could help. Not the intervention even of the Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, when Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. None of their pleas, the Medrash says, and none of what they supplicated HaKadosh Baruch Hu made any difference to anybody. There was a Gzeira, and nobody knew how far this would slide. Nobody knew what the outcome would be. Moshe Rabbeinu is pleading, and he's bringing psukim that you can't do this, you're killing mothers and children on the same day, and it's neged the Torah. Having no impact. It's cutting no ice, it's too late. Ad shekoftzah Rachel Imeinu. V'ois Shah koftzah Rachel Imeinu. Till suddenly, out of nowhere, the Neshama of Rachel Imeinu appeared in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and said to him, Rebbeinu Shleim, Golui lefanecho sheYaakov abducha ahavi avani ahava yisera. You know that Yaakov Avinu had a phenomenal love for me, a deep love for me. V'avad b'shvili la'aba sheva shonim, and he worked unreasonably and unfairly and unjustifiably for 7 years for my father to get my hand in marriage. And it came to the time that I should marry Yaakov, and my father was a wicked man, decided to switch Leah for me. Now, I was aware of it. There's no reason we should put up with that. It's just not right. It's inappropriate. But Rachel Imeinu said the following. V'husha ololai hadavar ad moed. It was too much for me to bear. What was to bear? See the insult and the embarrassment and the pain that my sister will suffer when she stands under the chuppah. Yaakov Avinu is going to walk away from the chuppah when he gives her the simon and she won't know how to answer, and he'll discover it's not the woman he intends to marry. He's going to just walk off the chuppah. And there she'll be in front of the whole stranded, all because of the riches of my father. I couldn't do that, and therefore I gave her the simon. And I made it possible for her to marry Yaakov. There are many questions about this, but that's not important now. That's what I did. So she says to the Rebbeinu Shalom, listen, I was meant to marry Yaakov. When I gave those simonim, I'm adding with the parish, you have to understand, when I gave her those simonim, there was no guarantee that Yaakov would ever marry me. Because according to the Torah law, you can't marry two sisters. So after Yaakov married Leah, it could be that Rachel will be out forever. Not just today, be out forever. And I still wasn't able to hold back from helping my sister because I couldn't imagine bearing the pain that she would have to bear. So I did that. I'm a human being, and I did that for human beings. You HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what are you angry about? They put a little idol in your Beis HaMikdash. That's what concerns you. A couple of people. You're the Rebbeinu Shalom. Get past it. And the Rebbeinu said to her, fine. B'shvilech, Rachel, in your merit, Rachel, I promise, v'shavu banu l'gvulim, there will be an ultimate gvula. So now you understand the power of what Rachel did. Rachel is the antithesis of everything we've spoken about. All that we've spoken about until now is how people can do something that's horrific in the Bein Adam L'Chavera realm, in the Bein Adam L'Makom realm, and ultimately somewhere it has to do with their comfort level that they can't give up, even though the consequences are catastrophic. They can come to murder. They come to murder in Yom Kippur, Shechol Yos B'Shabbos. Just the guy stopped hacking my ears. I can speak a Lashon Hara and destroy somebody's shidduch just because, I'm not sure if they deserve that shidduch, and maybe my daughter will be more suitable in that shidduch, so say something that's inappropriate. Kill off a whole girl forever. Pretend it wasn't an Aveira ben Adam L'Chavera. So Rachel Imeinu does exactly the opposite. Rachel Imeinu has every right al pidin to ignore her sister. She didn't bring her sister into the marriage. Her father's bringing the sister. It has nothing to do with her. Her father's a Russia. Her father was the one embarrassing her sister. Her sister has to live with the Meshuggah anyway. So whatever will go on, will go on. I intend to marry Yaakov. I'm not taking something that isn't mine. So she's a Bavateris. She's able to say, if I never marry Yaakov, and I die a single woman, I never get married, and I never have children, it would all have been worth it not to be a gram, not to be one of the factors that could have possibly made a difference in my sister's busha, my sister's embarrassment. No. You have to be Rachel Imeinu to make that cheshbon. What a posh cheshbon, such a thing. That's what she says. I can give up my marriage to my husband. I maybe never get married, maybe never have children, maybe I won't be Ein B'Yisrael. It doesn't make any difference as long as I'm not participating in the emotional murder of another person. That's Kedai. That's the tikkun on all the chatoim we're discussing. All the chatoim have the common denominator that somewhere it's good for me, therefore I get blind and I can't do it. And she's able to look at it, that she's a person with so much self-worth, with so much understanding what she really is, of so much understanding what Olam Hazeh is really about. It's about Omed Ben Yisrael, not about producing things that you think are important, but doing what's right at all costs. She's such a representative of that she can move out on everything that we call life. And that's the tikkun, and that's the Haftarah Sagula. That's where the promise of the Gula comes from. And that's where Leib said that. He said it over, there's a famous Gemara in Chulin where Pinchas Ben Yair wanted to cross a river, so the river divided for him the Yarden just like it divided for the Yam Suf. So then in Yerushalmi, they bring Yerushalmi in two places. The Yerushalmi says his Talmidim also wanted to cross the river behind him. So he said to them, if you never insulted a person in your life, the water will hold out for you, otherwise the water will crash on your head. Didn't say if you kept every halach in Hilchos Shabbos, or if you were medaktik in every kutzish of Yud of Taras Mishpacha, or you only ate Yoshin Chodesh. All those things are important. I'm not mizalzel. You have to do those things, but they won't protect you. The ultimate protection is the Hirus Ben Adam L'Chavera, because that's the statement that everyone is as important as I am. Everyone was created by the Rebbeinu Shem for a tachlis. There's nothing more important about me than anybody else. I value them and I appreciate them, and I'll do whatever I can to protect them, as long as I'm able to din the Rebbeinu Shem properly, serve the Rebbeinu Shem properly. Otherwise, you can't go through those waters. So we think on Tisha B'Av, unfortunately, through another Tisha B'Av, and this Tisha B'Av comes on the heel of as much tragedy as we can possibly imagine in the last number of years, with unqualified sorrows and things that I feel loyal and adas. One couldn't even imagine in a nightmare that such things could happen. But it's Shorsh Ben Adam L'Chavera, because we're mezalzel one another, because we don't appreciate one another, we don't look positively at other people, and we're caught up with ourselves, and the hate is so deep that every one of us thinks we're not the one who's doing the hate. People admit to moving muktzah on Shabbos. People admit to being not so careful in kashrus. People admit to talking and davening. Nobody admits to sin a sinner. So I do sin a sinner. I'm sure going to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Why would you accuse me of sin a sinner? The Chofetz Chaim says every Lashon Hara is sin a sinner. every negative statement about a person is sin. Right? Probably do sin is chinuch from 50,000 times a day without realizing it, and it's so incorporated in the system, the person can't even identify it. That's how unlike it is, how frightening it is, and how destructive it is. So that's what we need to try and spend a little time on. We need to recognize that it obviously hasn't gone away because Beis Mikdash wasn't rebuilt, and the Rosh Yeshiva is saying that we see tzaros around us based on the inability to be respectful and helpful of them on the Chavera. Look for the positive. Understand people aren't perfect. People struggle with issues. They can be imperfect and still be respected. You're imperfect and you want to be respected, so why shouldn't you respect him when he's imperfect? But he's imperfect, different from me. That's what you think. The half about him you think is a Meshuggah, he thinks the half about you is a Meshuggah. What's the difference? It's the same Avodah. It's exactly the same thing. If we can learn that, and we can learn it, because Jewish people are good people, and they're determined people, we can learn it, and we will learn it, and Be'ezus Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu will help us to learn it, will make us make a commitment, our strength, to have a more positive view, to speak nicely about people, to try to look out for the good of people, to try to think positively about people, particularly people who struggle, because they have all sorts of burdens, and if you had, you'd be much worse than them. So the Rebbeinu Shem should help, the Mitzvah Shem, we should use this unfortunate day in our calendar as a platform for reconsidering some of the things that we're commonly doing and used to doing. We should be zocheh through that to make the tikkun as Rachel Imenu has set the ground for us, which will set the grounds for a Gvul Shleima.